The problem can be that it's day 1, day 8, and so it can present some problems in terms of use of growth factor and things like that.
So let's look at ASCENT-03 and Sacituzumab Govitecan. I think we as a community are more familiar with the adverse effect profile because we've been using Sacituzumab. I didn't see any new signals in terms of the toxicity profile there. What was your interpretation?
Yeah, I completely agree. You know, Sacituzumab, Govitecan, on the other hand, our two most prominent side effects are diarrhea and then neutropenia. So diarrhea, neutropenia, and, you know, datopotamab, obviously with the mucositis in the eye. So, you know, I think it's important to remember they're both Trop-2 targeted ADCs. They both have the same payload, very different profile. So with Sacituzumab Govitecan, the diarrhea I actually find to be very polarizing in patients. It's not a neratinib or a lapatinib diarrhea or even a abemaciclib diarrhea where you can kind of guarantee that everybody's going to have some diarrhea. It's just a question of how bad it is. Sacituzumab Govitecan, either have patients that don't have any or they have it and struggle a little bit. It's kind of this either or, which I find a little bit interesting. I'm curious if you had the same experience. And then the neutropenia, you know, really patients don't feel that. You know, I luckily haven't had any patients that have really gotten in trouble with infections and febrile neutropenia, and I've not had any deaths, although I feel like I have to knock on wood with that. But the problem can be that it's day 1, day 8. And so it can present some problems in terms of use of growth factor and things like that. You can't use growth factor between the day 1, day 8, and so we tend to use it after day 8 long acting to try to drive that white blood cell count up for the next cycle. But I think you bring up a good point. We've had it around for longer, and so people are kind of starting to get comfortable with it.
Yeah, and I want to retouch on your point with regard to some of the initial toxicities with sacituzumab. You know, I think, again, we're familiar with it, but I do warn my patients that usually the first couple of cycles can be a little bit rocky in terms of schedule because it can get disrupted by the neutropenia, as you pointed out. So certainly prophylactic growth factor is recommended in that setting.